and welcome back. My name's Sonia. I'm from Celestia Astrology, and I have with me my good friend Janessa from Astrology. Hi, Janessa.
Hi there. Thanks for having me back today.
Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. But today we're looking at the 25th to the 1st of October. So we've recorded 5 episodes this month. We've had a busy month in September. So we just got 3 things that we're looking at. But a special mention to Mercury, because on the 25th, you will notice we included it in last week's recording because Mercury was making 3 aspects to the outer planets. So we put them all together in last week's, but Mercury was trining Uranus and then opposite Neptune on the 25th and then trining Pluto on the same day. So on the 25th, the day that this is going out, we've already recorded everything that's happening today on the 25th. So you've got that in last week's episode if you want to refresh your memories on what we said about those. And we're going to start today going straight into Mercury entering Libra, which is going to be a mood shift, I feel, because Mercury will lose dignity. Yes, he's been dignified in Virgo, and now as he enters Libra, although he's been like under the beams or combust, but he has been in his chariot while he's been in Virgo. But as he enters Libra, he loses some of that. So it is going to matter, but he will be joining the sun. It's going to cause the problems for him. So we might feel that change as he shifts, and that will affect our communication. And then Mars will trine Saturn, and Saturn's retrograde in Pisces. Then we'll have this lovely Mercury Cazimi, which is always a really nice time. So we're just going to look at those 3 today, and we're going to give you the heads up on the 2nd of October. The eclipse season for the end of this year closes with this annular solar eclipse, and that's back in Libra. So we've just had the Pisces eclipse, which has been an out of sign. It's been an introduction to the Pisces themes. But it's back now in the Libra Aries axis. So we have this graph that we've introduced you to before, and we're approaching the end of the month now. Mercury, we see, travelled all the way through Virgo and is now going to be approaching Libra, which is Venus's home. But unfortunately, Venus has already left the building, so she won't be there to greet him when he gets there. And those are the only major planetary changes that we're looking at this week for you. So this shift of Mercury, Janessa, who do you think it will affect?
So that will affect the mutable signs with having the Mercury on the angles. Mutable risings, that would be Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, and Sagittarius.
Yep.
And then also cardinal rising, so Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, and Aries.
So the first one we're looking at today is on the 26th, Mercury entering Libra. And as I said, this is important because of Mercury in Virgo is always a lovely time. It's my favourite planetary transit of the year. Now he'll be leaving the domicile and exaltation. So it's a fall in dignity. And here we call it peregrine. And planets that are peregrine and kind of known as wanderers, they're kind of a little bit lost. We see that even more so because Mercury has no sight of Venus, who is the ruler of Libra. So we say that Mercury is averse to Libra. So it's like being in an Airbnb and you can't reach your host. You've got no phone line. They're not answering your texts. You can't get messages. So if you've got needs, you can't get them seen to. So Mercury's kind of left to his own devices. To compound that, he's combust the sun, which means that the sun's beams, while he's kind of burnt up in the sun, and he's been protected while he's been in Virgo. So it's a little bit of a shock to the system because it's like a sudden change, whereas normally he'd be travelling closer, so it would be a gradual change. He'd be under the beams and then gradually move into a combustion from 8 degrees away and then gradually travel closer to where this is 3 degrees away. But suddenly he moves and he's 3 degrees away and he feels it immediately. So I don't know what you think, Janessa, but I feel like this might be more of a shock to us than it would normally be if the sun had been further away. when Mercury moves.
Yeah, I would agree. It's also interesting too that Mercury will be joining the South Node pretty quickly too. So like even more like lessening, if we think of the South Node as kind of like being a point where we release things or things are made smaller, that voice being Mercury, and like the communicator is like shrinking even more and not very visible, like you were explaining. So I wonder, like, I do like Mercury in an air sign. I think, a lot of like the mercurial topics and air topics kind of, there's a lot of similarities there with communication and intellect. And so I think that is one saving grace here. Air signs want to do some mercurial things as in communicating. But yeah, and then having the ruler of Libra being in her detriment there in Scorpio, Venus in Scorpio. Yeah, it feels like the communication is really happening behind the scenes. There's not a lot of visibility into what's being communicated during this time period. Maybe a lot of like whispers or secrets, or the things that will eventually be revealed, but right now are kind of like not visible to us.
The other thing I'm noticing is that Mercury is also averse to the exaltation ruler, which is Saturn in Pisces. So he's got no sight of either Venus or Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't help either the Sun, with Venus going into Scorpio there. Doesn't help the Sun or Mercury now. So they're both in that state.
Oh, I was just say there's even that Antisha happening with Neptune, which just clouds things more. So yeah.
That's interesting, especially as we're sort of having that Neptunian eclipse in water, and it feels like air and water being that separation, isn't it? You've got earth and water together as elements, and then air and fire in sort of a higher, not a higher in terms of better, but a higher sphere elementally, in terms of the way that they mix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we just may notice a shift of the communication tone as well, because communications and relationships and everything can move towards more Venusian. Venus still has the say over how Mercury's going to express it, where Mercury's been in charge of our communication and our thoughts while it was in Virgo. Venus now has the say over how Mercury's functioning.
Yeah, I feel like especially the timing, something that comes to mind with Libra season or with Mercury being in Libra in particular is like politics and like Libra being a very diplomatic sign. But yeah, bringing up some of maybe those issues around justice or around politics or law, but again, like being very under the surface and not very clear to us. But this being like election season in the US at least, like, we're feeling that building up to November. It feels like there's a lot going on, but it's maybe not going to find out till later.
Yeah, but it does become clear when Mercury emerges from under the beams, but that's going to take some time. And we'll talk about that when we come to the Cazimi, about when we might expect to understand what's been going on during this time of invisibility.
So we have Mars trining Saturn, Mars in Cancer, trining Saturn in Pisces. Mars-Saturn combinations often feel like, I think I've heard them described as like the gas and the brakes, gas being Mars and like wanting to go forward, and Saturn being like, whoa, 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 not so fast. Because it's a trine, which is like a benefic configuration, like a helpful configuration that has a little, typically has more flow. I feel like it's maybe more of like the skilled driver using the brake to like navigate quick turns, but instead of like the herky jerky type driving, but there's still some stop and go and some slowing down. It's maybe less abrupt, I guess, but maybe they're working a little bit more fluidly together, especially being in water signs, and having that flow between them. And then we have Venus down in Scorpio that's, by whole sign is like trining these two. So there's a lot of like that's very dynamic right now between the water signs, a lot of communication happening. And, water signs being kind of more on the emotional level. It's like maybe these are things, again, that are like subterranean or like kind of more on like a visceral level versus like things that we're thinking or things that we're communicating about. It might just be more of like this undercurrent to what's going on. What do you think, Sonia?
It's really nice. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, what I'm noticing, I mean, I see Mars there is in Mercury's bound and Decan, and we know that Mercury's struggling a bit right now. He's a bit invisible, so that might restrict Mars's ability to act. And then Saturn we see in Jupiter's bound and Decan, which is ruled by Mercury. So there's a lot of interplay going on at the moment, and Mercury's got a lot of say over what's going on here. But I do see, what I do like is that the moon is the triplicity ruler of both. So they've got that dual mixed reception in terms of triplicity, which is a very supportive thing, which is what we see with trines, that support that's there. And they both have sighted the moon in Virgo. So that shows that we can seek support here, but it's more likely to be of an emotional nature, maybe intuitive thoughts and feelings come through, or emotions. And these aren't areas necessarily where Mars and Saturn are comfortable. It's not comfortable ground. They're planets, or Mars is a planet of action, and Saturn is a planet of listens and not really into the feels of things. But when the moon is a triplicity ruler, that's where they get their support from. So that's where they need to look. So I feel, especially when their bound and Decan ruler is invisible. Jupiter isn't, but Jupiter's ruler is. So there's like this chain of command. Sometimes we look at the final dispositor as well. So this chain of command, and then we would look to the sun. And in that case, it would all come down to Venus in her fall, because she's the ruler of them all. So yeah, you can see my thought processes.
We should say that we're filming this under the eclipse today. It's when it acts in the US at like 9:30 where I live last night, and I think earlier today for you. So
yeah. So it's I think with Mars being in Cancer and the moon being eclipsed, I think maybe people might have felt it more if depending on where their Mars is as well. It occurred to me, with the moon being eclipsed and Mars being in that sign of the moon. I wonder if our ability to actually take focused action is impacted, and my ability to focus seems to be affected right now. Then we come to, on the 30th of September, we have Mercury will be Cazimi, and that'll be happening at 8 degrees of Libra. And we see Mercury will be an evening star. They'll be meeting the heart of the sun. So it's like it's going into the inner chamber of the king, where it's going to be reborn, re-empowered. It's like a meeting with the king, a very empowering time of getting the new instructions. So after this time of combustion, it's kind of like a pilgrimage almost, where you have to fast. That 40 days and 40 nights of going into the desert, and he's done this difficult journey. And this is that moment of meeting the oracle. This is the journey's end. It's this Cazimi moment. But after it, he has to retrace that journey back through the desert. So he'll still be going out through those stages of combustion and under the beams before he can return to us with those new messages. So we see he's leaving the sage phase that he's been in, and he'll be going into the psychopomp phase, which is the final stage in the journey. And when he leaves that, he'll be going back into the trickster phase, which is the youthful, energetic, mischievous, young stage of Mercury, where we may see riddles coming through. But at the moment, it's a very serious, intense phase. You might think messages from the dead, things like that. and a communication with the dead, which is very fitting when it's coming at the time of Samhain or Halloween, as people are preparing for that. Like, to see Mercury in this phase is really quite timely, I feel. And I just made a note of when Mercury will be out from under the beams, and it's October the 22nd at 14 Scorpio. So he won't be out from his combustion under the beams until he's left the whole of Libra and moved into Scorpio. So it'll be a little bit of time before we understand. So those cardinal signs of Libra, Aries, Capricorn, and Cancer won't know what that message is until it hits the fixed signs: Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius, and Leo. So those are the signs that might expect new information coming through once Mercury leaves. And that affects, like, Mercury represents our intellectual powers, but he also rules movement and fluidity between boundaries. And I feel like that's quite important when we're talking about his psychopomp phrase. Maybe that's what he's working on. Things like information intelligence, flexibility, technology. I mean, we've literally seen technology being used as a weapon happening, like yesterday at the time of recording, which was obviously happening at the time of the eclipse. I saw an article saying, why now? And I thought, well, astrologers could kind of pinpoint why now, maybe. What do you think, Janessa?
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of it. I love that when Mercury comes out of the beams that he'll be in Scorpio. And I feel like that's going to be really satisfying after like this intense time of like not really knowing what's going on, because then we're going to get like all of the tea, because Mercury in Scorpio can go really deep and can really like uncover all of the details, all of the layers. And it's not like we're just going to get some fluff. It's like it's going to be meaningful, and it's going to be, it's going to really go there. I feel like it will be very satisfying once we find out what these secret conversations have been. I'm a little biased. It's my Mercury return, so, but I do think that it will feel good after kind of being on the surface and not having a lot of strength and visibility there in Libra, to go really down to the depths once we get to Scorpio.
Yeah, that's really nice. Just want to go, because I forgot something. I forgot to give I've got the dates for cycle here with Mars and Saturn. I wanted to say that this is like a 2-year cycle, which is a bit slower than the cycles that we have for Venus and Mercury, which are the Sun, Venus, and Mercury all complete their cycles within about a year, and Mars's cycle takes about 2 years, so it's a lot slower. And we saw Saturn and Mars were conjunct on the 10th of April at 14 Pisces. Their opening square was the 16th of August at 17 degrees of Gemini. Their opposition takes a lot longer because of retrogrades, so that's going to be on the 9th of August in 2025. In Aries Libra, and the next conjunction won't be until the 19th of April in 26. So I say that right, 19th of April 2026. So that gives us a feel for the length of that cycle and how it differs from the other cycles we've been looking at with Mercury, Venus, and the Sun. So we wanted to give you a look ahead to what's coming on the 2nd of October. Do you want to take us through this, Janessa?
Sure. So on the 2nd of October, we'll cover this more in depth in the next week's video, but we will have the solar eclipse in Libra. And so, yeah, it's not the last one in this cycle, but as we said earlier, we had the first eclipse in Pisces that started this eclipse cycle, or that started this eclipse season for us, but now we're shifting back into the Aries Libra axis. And yeah, so we're starting to near the end of this story, but we're not quite there yet. So
yeah. So we've been in this eclipse portal, haven't we, for 2 weeks between the Pisces and the Libra eclipses of like an introduction to something new and a closing out of something old.
Yeah, these stories should start becoming pretty clear for you if they haven't yet for Aries and Libra eclipses, those houses in your chart, and themes to do with them.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Mercury there. Obviously, so close to the sun still. Still invisible, but he's like imprinted into this eclipse. So whatever it will be about, when we look ahead to Mercury in Scorpio, that may hold some of that eclipse energy for you as well. Okay, so that closes out the whole of September. Janessa's been very kind joining us for the whole of September with a lot of astrology to go through. So thank you so much, Janessa. And do you want to remind everybody where we can find you?
Sure, yeah. So you can find me at byjoveastrology.com. I'm on social media under at byjoveastro on Instagram, at byjoveastrology on Twitter, and I also have a podcast called The Astro Garden. You can find that wherever you stream podcasts. I have a Substack. You can find it all on my website and social media. So
That's brilliant. And Janessa's open for astrology meetings as well. We both are. I think, did you say that?
I didn't. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. My name's Sonia. I'm Celestia Astrology. You can find me pretty much in all the places that Janessa just mentioned, just under Celestia Astrology. I'm a Substack as well, and hopefully wherever you found this recording. So thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us for the weekly forecast. You often hear creators ask you, could you please like and subscribe? And I can't emphasize enough how important it is for small channels. It really does make the difference. And also we all want to reach the audience that our content is made for. And we can do this with your help if you've enjoyed it. It gives us immediate feedback on what you're enjoying and what you would like more of. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's a great way for you to support our work and just let us know that you're enjoying what we're doing. So if you have enjoyed this content through to the end and you'd like us to keep making it and make more of it, that's a great way for you to let us know. So wherever you're watching this, please do give us a thumbs up and give us your support. And we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.